and welcome to Round Robin. I'm your host, Robin McCormick, with the City of Hampton's Communication Department. And today we're going to talk about a Hampton initiative that you've probably heard of but may not understand. It's the Safe and Clean Initiative. My guest is Assistant City Manager Jimmy Gray. Welcome, Jimmy.
Good. Thank you for having me this morning.
Thank you. And I think, the people out there have probably heard us toss around this term, and they've seen City Council talk about a lot of things, but what the heck is it? As an overview nutshell, what is Safe and Clean trying to do?
Okay. Well, Safe and Clean is a new initiative in the city, and I should say it really is a remake of some old initiatives that we had,
That's
such
right.
as Crime and Grime and some of the other initiatives that were aimed at improving
It's sort of not new under the sun
but,
in a lot of ways.
But we've expanded it a bit, and of course, giving it the term or the name Safe and Clean, it's just that. We want to make our neighborhoods safer and cleaner for regardless of where you are and what neighborhood you live in the city. But there are some neighborhoods with some specific problems of increasing crime and blighted housing conditions, and so we need to focus specifically on those neighborhoods. And so we've created this initiative and brought in all the right departments and funded programs, passed new ordinances, and all aimed at trying to improve the living conditions and again make those neighborhoods safer and cleaner to live in.
Now, one of the things I think people may not understand is that this is not like a top-down initiative. You or the city manager didn't come in and say, hey, I see some problems out there. A lot of this welled up from some neighborhoods that are seeing disproportionate crime and other impacts.
That's correct. And we received those kind of complaints from neighbors regarding crime and blighted housing conditions, rental units that are not properly cared for. And, while we do have inspectors, code enforcement officers, and police officers in those neighborhoods, sometimes those neighborhoods which are more challenged require some additional resources and time. And so that's what we wanted to do. But it really was a response to feedback and concerns that we have through our regular interactions with many of the neighborhoods and neighborhood leaders in some of the target neighborhoods in the city.
So let's talk about then what some of these initiatives are. Let's start with the police, because I think that's sort of, for some people, the obvious response. Okay. Well, why aren't the police out there preventing crime?
Right. Well, it's hard to have a police officer on every corner. And we have
It's impossible.
Well, you're right. It's impossible. And we have a great police department. They do a great job. And but as with any police organization, they are challenged to be in all places at all times. And so we have to make sure that we adequately fund the police department and give them the resources and staffing they need to address specific problems. And so Safe and Clean has three goals. First is to build the relationships with the neighborhoods. We have those neighborhoods which have signs of increased crime and blighted housing conditions. And so we have gone out and knocked on the doors, over 1,900 doors over the last 90 days to make contact with the residents and the neighborhood leaders.
And let's talk about that for just a second, because I remember I posted on the Facebook page, that you made this great contact, and I was really stunned by a little bit of negative reaction, like as if people thought the police were going to enter their house without a warrant, or it was some sort of police state thing. And it wasn't that at all. What kind of reaction did they get most of the time?
It wasn't that at all. Our police department established a mobile precinct in each of the neighborhoods. Each week we focused on a different neighborhood. And so the goal here was to build those relationships, to build that trust with those who live in the community. And we wanted to do that by knocking on the doors, allowing people to see the faces, learn the names of the police officers, the code inspectors, and those who are responsible for certain city services in their neighborhood. And then the second part of that, of course, was to make sure that citizens are aware of the numbers, the phone numbers that they call, whether that be 311 or a direct number to a department if they want to report some kind of crime or blighted condition in the neighborhood. So it was aimed at trying to establish or improve the lines of communication, help them better understand who's responsible for services in the neighborhood, and really create that one-on-one contact and make sure people feel comfortable dialing the number, reporting crime. But at the same time, we wanted to get some feedback to observe the conditions in the neighborhood. And so we were able to accomplish all of that as we went through, again, over 1,900 homes, street by street, house by house, in certain target neighborhoods to kind of get that information and build that relationship.
That feels like an important piece of it. And I want to touch on something that Pat Minetti said very recently when the police building was dedicated in his name. He said, police are the public and the public are the police. And I think that is part of what you're trying to do here and what this initiative is trying to do is to remind citizens of their duty. You can't live in a neighborhood and live within your shell and not be a part of the community. And I think so many people are afraid or unwilling to take a stand or report something. How do you get past that?
And again, that you're absolutely right, and that's what the door-to-door campaign piece of Safe and Clean was all about. It was about building the trust in the community. Again, they had an opportunity to see the police officers and meet the police officers who are responsible for the areas of the city that they live in. And so we, city government can't do it all, and we made sure that was clear to the people that we communicated with and had discussions with in the neighborhoods, was that we needed their help as well.
And that we'll be there to back them up. It is a trust situation.
Right, it's a trust situation.
Okay.
So we wanted to be there. We wanted to let them know that, here are the people that you call, but we need your help. We need you to call as often as necessary to report whatever the condition is, whether that is a criminal activity, loitering, blighted property, or any other suspicious activity. We want people to call in as often as possible so that we can begin to address those and know those problems exist in the city.
Okay. So what else?
Okay,
I keep interrupting you. You're not going to get very far,
right.
Jimmy.
Goal number 2 of Safe and Clean, of course, is to attack blighted conditions. And you've heard the discussion, and even our city manager talk about the broken windows theory. And that is, if we allow broken windows and graffiti and other blighted conditions to exist in neighborhoods, then that will continue to attract vandalism. It will attract crime. And so we want to make sure that we, one, don't allow it to continue, and where it may exist, to be able to try to break that cycle and begin to improve those neighborhood conditions. And so, part 2 of building a relationship with the neighbors is making sure that they can identify and know what constitutes a blighted condition, and know who to call to report those. And so City Council has given us some additional tools to work with, in the recently passed rental inspection ordinance, which will be up and running around the 1st of January. A hotel motel ordinance that limits the length of time that you can stay in a hotel, which sometimes begins to attract criminal activity when people set up in those types of establishments too long. And so, addressing the blighted conditions that are prevalent in some of our communities was goal number 2. And,
so one of the criticisms about that, though, so we're gonna address the condition of rental properties. We're gonna keep people from living in hotels. Are we trying to push poor people out of the city? That's one of the things I've heard through the media and elsewhere.
Absolutely not. Our goal here again is to, we have people of all socioeconomic status that live in the city of Hampton, and regardless of where you live, we want to make sure that you're able to live in a neighborhood that's safe and clean. And so again, it's not the goal here is not to push out any element or any people or families that live in our community. Our goal is to improve the living conditions of those so they can enjoy a good quality of life regardless of what segment or what section of the city that they live in.
And that's one of the things too, for people who are on the edge of homelessness, who may be trying to live out of a hotel, the point is, it's not a safe thing. It's not, you put a family of 4 or 5 in a hotel room and there's no place to cook, and they get trapped in this cycle of having to eat out, having a whole lot of additional expenses. And instead, if we can funnel them into our Human Services Department and try to find them some long-term resources that can improve their quality of life and help them get out of that situation.
That's exactly right. I mean, hotels were meant for short-term stays, kind of a more transient population, and they were not designed or not properly zoned for permanent living conditions. And so where people are in need of housing, we do have social service staff who are trained to address those kinds of issues and those kinds of needs. And as a matter of fact, we have 10 different departments and agencies that are at the table at our Monday morning Safe and Clean Task Force meetings. Social services is one of those departments because we realize as we begin to address these conditions and begin to enforce the new ordinances that are in place for example, hotels, it may require some people to be relocated. So we're prepared to try to help address those housing needs that may result from the enforcement of those new ordinances.
Okay. All right, what else?
All right, and then the last of those, of course, and certainly not the least of them, is to reduce crime in neighborhoods, and that's kind of the third goal. And that third goal is to get more police officers out on our streets and in our neighborhoods, to increase the presence of police officers, and the term that we use is to kind of saturate the areas that have some criminal activity, or what we're seeing increased criminal activities with additional police officers. And so back in August, City Council did approve additional funding for overtime to put more police officers on the street, additional surveillance equipment and the tools that police officers need to be more efficient, where we can get officers less time doing paperwork through the use of technology and give them more opportunity to deal with and be more proactive in their work in their neighborhoods. We think we'll get a better result and a better outcome. And so additional police protection, additional presence of police officers, kind of the third goal that we have for our Safe and Clean initiative.
And some of that may be hiring, and hopefully we'll rerun our police recruiting, because I think that's one of the problems has been we haven't been able to hire and train people fast enough, even when we've had the funding. But the other piece of that is using some new technologies to free up their time.
Right,
and some surveillance technology. I mean, I think in a lot of ways, sometimes the public sector has been a little bit behind the private sector, and there are concerns about people's privacy, but you know what? You go shopping in a store, you're on a camera. I mean, really and truly, it is an effective way to monitor situations that uses less people. And why should it be different because it's a public building or a public street as opposed to private buildings?
Well, you're exactly right. And so there's a lot of technology available to law enforcement, to our police department to do a better job at or to improve their ability to address crime in a more proactive way. And surveillance equipment, cameras, and those kinds of things. We can invest in police officers, but we want to make best use of the available technology on the market to help our police officers do their job in a more efficient and effective manner. So in addition to providing resources to put more officers on the street, we also wanted to couple that with technology and surveillance enhancements that help them do their job.
Right, and some of those technologies also help them know if someone is wanted or do quick checks, or you can do a lot even on Google now without even all the police technologies of knowing who's who and what's going on out there.
That's exactly right. Using following criminal activity through the social networks is a part of crime prevention, and I think our police department is engaged in using all of those resources they have to address crime in every area that they can find it. So those are kind of the three broad goals of Safe and Clean. And again, we bring together representatives from 10 different departments working together to try to achieve the outcomes that we're working on. And again, we just recently finished our first round of door-to-door visits, again mentioning over 1,900 doors that we knocked on. Our codes department and our police department did that. And now we'll begin to see a second round of door-to-door visits and neighborhood visits involving other departments, such as your fire department or your emergency management department and social services representatives engaging citizens. Because again, it's about building that trust with the community, allowing folks to see the faces and learn the names of the people who are responsible for servicing them or providing services in their neighborhood. And at the same time, again, this doesn't mean that the police officers go away or that the code enforcement go away. They're going to begin to now focus on the specific enforcement activities based on, some of the observations that they had in their first round of visits, but number two, now starting to enforce some of the new ordinances that are on the books to to again, prevent crime and address some of these specific activities or criminal activities in some of our more challenged neighborhoods.
Okay, well, thank you, Jimmy. Thank you for coming by and explaining that.
Thanks for having me.
And I hope you understand a little bit better what the city is doing, and not just what the city staff in 10 departments are doing, but how it needs the community response and community involvement as well. So please call us if you see something at all suspicious or questionable, and let's work closer together. Thank you.